Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about one of the greatest conquerors in history, Alexander the Great. His story is full of power, battles, and unbelievable achievements, so make sure you watch this video till the end. Long before the rise of Alexander the Great, the ancient world was a scattered mosaic of cultures, kingdoms, and empires. Greece, divided into independent city-states, was recovering from decades of internal conflict. The Persian Empire stretched from Asia Minor to the borders of India, controlling vast populations and immense wealth. Egypt, once glorious, was now under Persian rule. In the far west, Rome was still a rising republic, not yet powerful enough to influence world affairs. The Greek world was intellectually rich, but politically fragile. Athens, defeated by Sparta during the Peloponnesian War, struggled to regain influence. Sparta's harsh dominance eventually collapsed, opening the way for a new force. Macedonia, a kingdom that many southern Greeks considered crude and barbaric. Yet Macedonia possessed something Greece had lacked for generations: unity under a strong monarch. That monarch was King Philip II, a brilliant strategist and statesman. Recognizing the weaknesses of the Greek city-states, Philip reorganized the Macedonian army, introducing longer spears called sarissas, elite cavalry units, and the powerful phalanx formation. Unlike Greek armies limited by politics and seasonal warfare, Philip's army was professional, trained year-round, and loyal to the throne. Philip's ambition was clear: unite Greece and lead a grand campaign against Persia. But fate had another plan. His assassination in 336 BCE would open the path for his 20-year-old son, Alexander, to take the throne. No one could have imagined that this young prince would soon transform the world. Alexander was born in 356 BCE in Pella, the Macedonian capital. His father, Philip II, was a respected military genius, while his mother, Olympias, was a fierce and deeply spiritual woman from Epirus. Alexander's upbringing was far from ordinary. Olympias told him he descended from Achilles himself, and Philip ensured he was surrounded by the best scholars. Alexander's tutor was Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers in history. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander learned ethics, logic, medicine, literature, geography, and natural sciences. But Aristotle also gave him something more valuable: curiosity. Alexander developed a lifelong passion for learning, collecting books, plants, animals, and cultural artifacts as he traveled. At an early age, Alexander showed exceptional courage. The most famous example occurred when he was about 12. Philip bought a mighty horse named Bucephalus, but it was wild and uncontrollable. While the adults dismissed the animal, Alexander observed that the horse feared its own shadow. Turning Bucephalus toward the sun, he calmed him and rode him successfully. Philip, amazed, reportedly said, "My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambition. Macedonia is too small for you." This moment foreshadowed Alexander's destiny. The world was indeed too small for his dreams. In 336 BCE, during the wedding of Philip's daughter Cleopatra, the king was assassinated by one of his own guards. The reasons remain debated: political conspiracy, personal revenge, or even involvement from Olympias. What mattered to Macedonia was that the throne suddenly passed to Alexander, barely 20 years old. Many doubted his ability to rule. Rival factions rose immediately, trying to exploit his youth. Greek city-states, Athens, Thebes, and others, celebrated Philip's death, believing Macedonia would collapse. Alexander responded decisively. He eliminated rivals at home, reasserted control over the Macedonian nobles, and marched south with speed that shocked Greece. When Thebes rebelled, Alexander destroyed the city completely, except temples and the house of the poet Pindar. This brutal action sent a clear message: revolt against Macedonia meant annihilation. Greece submitted, and Alexander was recognized as the leader, hegemon of the Greek League. With Greece secured and his authority unquestioned, Alexander focused on fulfilling his father's dream: invading the Persian Empire. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed the Hellespont, modern Dardanelles, with approximately 40,000 soldiers. It was a small army compared to Persia's vast forces, but Alexander possessed superior discipline, tactics, and morale. Upon reaching Asia Minor, he first visited the legendary site of Troy, honoring Achilles, his supposed ancestor, and the heroes of Homeric epics. This gesture signaled Alexander's belief that he was continuing a grand mythical tradition. The Persian satraps attempted to stop him at the Battle of the Granicus River. Alexander personally led the charge, narrowly escaping death. His victory opened the way for the conquest of Western Asia Minor. City after city fell or surrendered: Sardis, Miletus, Halicarnassus. Alexander allowed local customs and supported Greek-style democracies, portraying himself as a liberator. This strategy gained him support and minimized resistance. By 333 BCE, Alexander had secured Asia Minor and moved eastward, preparing to confront King Darius III, the ruler of Persia. The first major confrontation between Alexander and Darius occurred at Issus, a narrow coastal plain, perfect for Alexander's smaller army and disastrous for Darius's larger one. Darius brought a massive force, including Greek mercenaries and elite Persian infantry. Alexander leading his cavalry on the right flank, charged directly at Darius. The Persian king panicked, abandoned his chariot, and fled the battlefield. The victory was overwhelming. Alexander captured Darius's family, his mother, wife, and children, but treated them with respect, which enhanced his reputation. Issus proved that the mighty Persian Empire could be defeated. After Issus, Alexander marched south along the Mediterranean coast. Cities surrendered easily, except the island fortress of Tyre, a powerful Phoenician stronghold. Tyre refused to let Alexander enter to worship. Alexander responded with a bold plan. He ordered his men to build a causeway from the mainland to the island. The siege lasted 7 months and required extraordinary engineering creativity. In 332 BCE, Tyre fell after a brutal battle. The fall of Tyre shocked the region. When Alexander entered Egypt, the people welcomed him as a liberator from Persian control. In Egypt, Alexander founded the city of Alexandria, which would later become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. He also visited the Oracle of Ammon at Siwa Oasis, where priests supposedly addressed him as son of Zeus. Whether true or exaggerated, Alexander embraced the divine status. It strengthened his political authority across the empire. In 331 BCE, Alexander faced Darius again at Gaugamela, one of the most famous battles in history. This time Darius prepared carefully, selecting open terrain ideal for Persian chariots and deploying a massive multinational army. Alexander, however, used superior maneuvering. As his forces angled to the right, Darius attempted to counter. At the perfect moment, Alexander led his elite cavalry through a gap in the Persian line, heading straight toward Darius. Once again, the Persian king fled. With the Persian army in panic, Alexander claimed a decisive victory that effectively ended Persian dominance. He entered Babylon, Susa, and eventually Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. Persepolis was burned, perhaps accidentally, perhaps intentionally, symbolizing the fall of the Persian Empire. Darius was later betrayed and murdered by his own satrap Bessus. Alexander honored Darius with a royal burial and vowed to hunt down the traitors, claiming the Persian throne not as a conqueror, but as the rightful successor. After Persia's fall, Alexander assumed the title King of Asia. But ruling such a vast land required more than military victory. He adopted certain Persian customs, encouraged intermarriage between his soldiers and Persian women, and allowed Persians into high administrative positions. These policies created tension. Many Macedonians felt he was abandoning Greek traditions. Alexander, however, envisioned a blended empire, uniting East and West. Several conspiracies emerged. When Philotas, son of his trusted general Parmenion, was accused of treason, Alexander ordered his execution. Parmenion was later killed as a precaution, shocking the Macedonian army. Despite these internal conflicts, Alexander pressed on. His ambition drove him toward the unknown lands of Central Asia. From 330 to 327 BCE, Alexander fought grueling campaigns in the mountainous regions of Bactria and Sogdiana, modern Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. These lands were difficult to conquer. They offered no open plains for phalanx formations and were filled with guerrilla fighters. Alexander married Roxana, a Sogdian noblewoman symbolizing political unity. However, resistance persisted, led by local warlords like Spidamenes. Alexander founded new cities, introduced Greek-style governance, and used both military might and diplomacy to secure control. These campaigns exhausted the Macedonian troops. Many wondered why they continued marching farther and farther from home. Yet for Alexander, boundaries existed only to be crossed. In 327 BCE, Alexander crossed the Hindu Kush and entered the Indian subcontinent. To the Greeks, India was a mysterious land filled with exotic animals, rich kingdoms, and untold wonders. His first major opponent was King Porus of the Paurava kingdom. The two armies met at the Battle of the Hydaspes River in 326 BCE. Porus had war elephants, terrifying beasts unfamiliar to the Macedonians. Alexander used clever tactics, crossing the river secretly during a storm and surprising Porus. The battle was fierce. Both sides suffered heavy losses. Impressed by Porus's bravery, Alexander not only restored his kingdom, but expanded it. This battle demonstrated Alexander's respect for worthy opponents. After Hydaspes, Alexander planned to push further east toward the Ganges River, but his soldiers, battle-hardened, homesick, and tired after years of continuous war, refused to march farther. They mutinied at the Hyphasis River, modern B's. Alexander tried speeches, promises, even emotional appeals, but the men stood firm. At last, he accepted their decision. It was the first time Alexander's will was denied. The dream of reaching the end of the world remained unfulfilled. Instead of returning through the mountains, Alexander chose a dangerous route through the Gedrosian Desert, modern Baluchistan. It proved catastrophic. Heat, lack of water, and harsh terrain caused massive losses. Many historians believe Alexander took this route partly to punish his men for refusing to go further east. When he finally reached the Persian heartland again, he began reorganizing the empire. He promoted Persians, trained them in Macedonian warfare, and planned grand future campaigns. But conflict simmered. The Opus Mutiny nearly erupted into full rebellion when Macedonians felt replaced by Persian soldiers. Alexander confronted his men, reminding them of their shared victories. Eventually, reconciliation occurred, symbolized by a mass banquet celebrating unity between Macedonians and Persians. By 323 BCE, Alexander was only 32 but had conquered an empire larger than any before him. Yet he was restless. He planned campaigns into Arabia and further exploration of Africa and Asia. In Babylon, during a banquet, Alexander fell ill with a severe fever. Over several days, his condition worsened. His generals asked whom he wished to succeed him. According to tradition, he whispered, "Who the strongest?" Alexander the Great died on June 10th or 11th, 323 BCE. His death left the empire without a clear successor. His only legitimate son, Alexander IV, was born after his death. The generals, known as the Diadochi, soon fought brutal wars, dividing the empire into multiple Hellenistic kingdoms. Alexander's body was taken to Egypt, where it was placed in a golden sarcophagus. His tomb became a major site of pilgrimage until its location disappeared from history. Alexander's legacy is unparalleled. In just 12 years, he created an empire stretching from Greece to India, but conquest alone did not define him. Spread of Hellenism, Greek culture, language, art, science, architecture spread across the world, mixing with local traditions. This era, the Hellenistic Age, saw advancements in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature, and urban development. 2. Founding of cities. Alexander founded more than 20 cities, the most famous being Alexandria in Egypt. These cities became centers of trade, learning, and cultural exchange. Q. Military genius. His strategies are still studied in military academies worldwide. His ability to combine speed, flexibility, and psychological warfare made him nearly invincible. 4. A vision of unity. Though controversial, Alexander attempted to create a world where East and West blended politically and culturally, a radical idea for his time. Influence on later empires. Romans, Persians, Arabs, and even Napoleon admired him. Kings modeled themselves after Alexander for centuries. Despite his achievements, Alexander was human, brilliant yet flawed. He could be merciful, honoring enemies like Porus, yet capable of extreme cruelty, as seen in the destruction of Thebes. He was deeply loyal to friends like Hephaestion, whose death in 324 BCE devastated him. He was visionary, but also driven by personal glory. What made Alexander truly extraordinary was his relentless ambition, his belief that no boundary, geographical or human, was beyond conquest. He lived with unmatched energy, intelligence, and courage. He changed the world not just through war, but through ideas that continued shaping civilizations long after his empire vanished. Conclusion. Alexander the Great's life was short, intense, and world-changing. From the mountains of Macedonia to the deserts of Egypt, from the walls of Tyre to the jungles of India, he carried with him the dream of limitless possibility. His story remains one of the most fascinating in human history, an extraordinary blend of heroism, ambition, genius, and tragedy. So that was the incredible story of Alexander the Great. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.